Hello and welcome to another news update for Star Wars Legion, something I honestly did not expect before the mini-stravaganza that starts tomorrow. But it is a very much welcome reveal as we now are seeing cards for the Dwarf Spider Droid. We had the unit card itself revealed to us a little over a week ago, but with none of the weapon or programming upgrades revealed at the time, the unit card on its own really only showed us about a third of what the unit entails, as it doesn't really have a built-in weapon aside from its melee and self-destruct, and it must take a programming upgrade, which will inform how it plays. But today, we've had all three of our weapon upgrade cards revealed to us, along with one of the new programming upgrade cards, which is a new upgrade type, one that seems like it's going to be appearing on the droid vehicles that are actually themselves droids, as the card reveal on the Asmodee website has revealed it will also be present on the Persuader class tank. But let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the Dwarf Spider Droid, starting off by catching up with that unit card that was revealed to us a bit ago. And here we are going to have a 55-point support model, and much like the Fluttercraft, we are going to see a rather bare-bones chassis for a unit that is quite affordable before upgrades, who will also be introducing a new keyword. But here we are going to have the new programming upgrade slot, of which we must take a programming card as stated in its last keyword, followed up by a hardpoint and a comms upgrade. And I just want to make note that the comms upgrade here is actually pretty fantastic, because these guys are really going to want to make use of things like HQ uplink and link targeting array, something that is going to become more apparent when we take a look at their new hardpoint upgrade cards. But after that, we're going to see some similarities to the ATRT in terms of health. We have a white defense die with 6 wounds, damage capacity of 4, and a defensive surge, which is the same as the ATRT. However, this does only have armor 3, so the Spider Droid is going to be a little bit more vulnerable to those larger dice pool attacks than an ATRT would, which I do find to be a little bit unfortunate here, but I do understand it for balance reasons. Also, much like the ATRT, this is going to be a climbing vehicle with Expert Climber, which is definitely a bonus considering that we can get up to higher grounds and put this guy into cover, which he'll make good use of, considering that they only have armor 3. But moving on to our base profile attacks, we are first going to make notice that we have an offensive surge to hit here, something that was nice at first to see, but once we saw the weapon upgrades that we will take a look at in a moment, this offensive surge to hit really went up in value because all of the Dwarf Spider Droid's hardpoint weapon upgrades do have a pretty large dice pool. After that, we are going to see a melee attack named Wicked Kick that is a single rainbow, and this has to be one of the most bizarrely named melee attacks in the game. And for a weapon with such a colorful name, you'd think there would be a little bit more to it here, but unfortunately it is just a red, black, and white dice. Not as good as the ATRTs, but let's be honest here, you're not using this guy for melee. If he's going to be near your opponents, he's going to be there to blow up in their face. And that's where the DSD-1 self-destruct mechanism comes into play. And much like Overrun 1, we are going to have a new attack type here, which of course is named Self-Destruct. And this weapon profile is going to be linked to a keyword that allows you to perform the attack, which we can see at the top of the card titled Self-Destruct 4 as a free action. And this means if you have 4 wound tokens on you, you can then perform a self-destruct action, which keep in mind is not a standard attack action, and is also a free action, which means you can technically attack and then self-destruct in the same turn. And this self-destruct attack, when triggered, is going to affect all units within range 1, friendly or enemy. And in the case of the Dwarf Spider Droid, it will be 3 red dice with Impact 1 and Blast, which is definitely something that a gun line does not want to have go off in the middle of it. But personally, I don't think self-destruct is as good as people seem to think it is. I think the fact that we saw this weapon profile before we saw any of the hardpoint upgrades meant people were talking about it probably more than they would otherwise. But keep in mind, this requires you to get down to 2 wounds to activate it, and if your opponent successfully destroys this unit, it's not going to detonate. Again, it's a free action that you must take during your activation, so you don't really get to go out in a blaze of glory. And because of that narrow window in which you can actually trigger this self-destruct, I think it's going to come into play much less than people anticipate. And honestly, I don't think running Dwarf Spider Droids as a suicide unit is really going to work out. Still, new keywords are always fun, and this is very flavorful, and when it does go off, it's going to be a ton of fun rolling those dice. And with the DSD being just 55 points, I don't feel like we're overpaying for the self-destruct keyword or anything like that. So overall, I don't really have any complaints about self-destruct. I just overall don't think it's going to come up nearly as much as people think, and a good player is going to very easily be able to counter any strategy that revolves around it. So overall, I think this unit card is very interesting. I like how affordable it is as a base platform for upgrades, but I really don't have too much to say about that, and that's why I never made a video on it prior to now, because in my opinion, we really need to see the full unit with heavy weapons and programming. So let's go ahead and move along and take a look at the 3 new weapon upgrades that were revealed, as they are, in my opinion, very exciting. And here we will start off by taking a look at the flamethrower weapon upgrade. And this weapon was highly anticipated, as people did want to pair it with that self-destruct, because as we all know, ATRTs with flamethrowers have been a great distraction Carnifex unit since the beginning of the game. So go ahead and throw a suicide attack in there alongside it, and you have a very serious threat that will force your opponent to either deal with it or suffer. But at 15 points, this flamethrower will be throwing 1 red and 1 white dice with the spray keyword, meaning you get those dice for each model in the units, followed up by the blast keyword, which of course is going to be range 1 on the fixed frontal arc. So as far as keywords go, this is pretty much your standard flamethrower. However, a red and white die is going to net you less hits overall than 2 blackwood, as seen on the ATRT flamethrower, though not by much. So if you are looking for a distraction Carnifex unit, at just 70 points before protocols, a Dwarf Spider Droid with a flamethrower is a good option. Though personally, I do think this is the worst of the 3 weapon upgrades, at least for the time being, and the distraction Carnifex DSD is kind of in limbo at the moment, as we only have 1 of the 3 protocol upgrade cards revealed to us, and the one we do have is not going to complement a hyper-aggressive Dwarf Spider Droid. So the distraction Suicide Dwarf Spider Droid build may come into relevance later on, but for the time being, I do find the flamethrower to be the least appealing of these 3 weapon upgrades, at least in my opinion. But I believe that's actually a good thing, because most of the time the weapon that is the least appealing is not the one that has the spray keyword in it. And that means overall, none of these upgrades are duds. They all have a time and a place. But next up we are going to have the Ion Blaster, and finally we have an ion gun that is actually quite good. And this ion gun is going to be a 10-point exhaustible weapon upgrade that will be throwing 3 black and 3 white dice. And while it is exhaustible, it is also going to have the cycle keyword, meaning on the turn it's not used, it will untap itself, allowing you to fire it in the following turn without having made any recovery actions. It is also, of course, going to have the Ion 1 keyword, followed up by Impact 2, which will make this weapon very menacing against vehicles, which are becoming more and more prominent in today's meta, which, ironically, the Dwarf Spider Droid is contributing to. But lastly, this weapon will be fixed front and firing at ranges 2 to 4. So overall, this is a long-range threat that throws a good amount of dice backed up by an offensive surge, and while this unit would absolutely punish vehicles with this weapon upgrade, it is also decent against any target on its own, scoring an average of 3 hits each time, which is up to an average of 4 if you have an aim token. Now, exhaustible is a bit of a drawback here, and it's something we saw with the B2 Haas that people found clever workarounds for rather quickly. And with super tactical droids offering both override and direct AI, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem here. You're going to be able to make recoveries, you're going to be able to untap that card, and like I said earlier, if you make use of that comms upgrade and pair this with something like HQ uplink, you're going to be able to make a double untap with recoveries, or make use of a link targeting array to get aim tokens on turns where you get issued orders and decide to recover instead of aim. So unlike the B2 Ha, I think we have the tools to deal with this drawback already in our pocket. And at just 65 points before any other upgrades, I think you have an incredibly affordable unit that packs a lot of firepower, and I could see Ion Spider Droids becoming very, very competitive units. But lastly, we are going to have our standard nose-mounted cannon, and even this weapon is bringing a whole lot more to the table than I anticipated. At just 15 points, you are going to be getting a range 1 to 3 weapon, throwing 1 red, 3 black, and 1 white die, which will be backed up by the critical 1 keyword, and also have fixed front. And here, you're more or less just getting a more standardized version of the ion gun. You're going to be netting about the same amount of hits. However, you're not going to have to worry about your weapon being exhausted, and while the range is shortened by 1, you will also be able to fire within range 1 of yourself, which, believe it or not, is better than a wicked kick. So in a list where you may not have as many ways to get face-up order tokens onto the Dwarf Spider Droids, or if you're really worried about those exhaustible weapons not being able to be recovered, this is definitely a good alternative, though I think the ion gun does come out on top for me. Not only is it cheaper, but that increased range, along with the extra keywords of impact and ion, are really going to make this thing a menace on the tabletop, though you do need other units like a super tactical droid perhaps babysitting it. And I want to make note that we do still have 2 protocol upgrade cards that have not been revealed that will further affect how these weapons may be used. So this is far from our final judgment, though I think the ion gun is the standout here for now. And personally, I think the protocol card that we do have revealed goes quite well with it. So let's move along and take a look at that card. It is going to be, again, one of the 3 protocol cards that we have access to. And for the time being, this is the only one revealed, though we are going to see more in the near future, perhaps even tomorrow. And this card is going to be a 3-point upgrade, which is quite nice considering that these programming cards must be taken. And it is going to give you the AI aim keyword, meaning if you don't have a face-up order token, your first act during your activation must be to take an aim. And it will also give you the precise 2 keyword, allowing you to reroll 2 extra dice each time you spend an aim token. So at first glance, you say to yourself, this is amazing. There are so many units in the game that I wish had AI aim, notably those BX snipers, but giving us precise 2 on top of that for just 3 points, that's fantastic. But then you temper yourself a bit and realize, if you have to take an aim token on the turns where you should be moving or perhaps unexhausting that ion cannon, you're going to be hindering yourself perhaps as much as something like AI attack would. However, like I mentioned earlier, we are going into this unit with a bunch of tools we have to deal with AI, most notably with those keywords that the super tactical droid brings to the table, but we've had ways around this before with things like HQ uplink and comms relay, so on the few turns where I think you are going to need to get around AI aim, you're going to be able to do so pretty reliably. And with the dice we're throwing in these attack pools, especially on that ion gun, Precise 2 is going to be a very advantageous keyword to have. And with range 4, I don't think you're going to need to be worried about finding targets to spend that aim token on. Instead, making sure your weapon is unexhausted is going to be much more important. But like I said, the super tactical droid has tons of ways around this, including a command card that allows you to auto-recover. And with the Dwarf Spider Droid being just 68 points with Ion Cannon and attack protocols, I don't exactly think you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot if you miss out on a few actions with this unit. However, attack protocols is very much not going to work out on that flamethrower suicide build. Fortunately, we are likely going to have a movement-based protocol upgrade, probably with engagement protocols. So if that is your main draw towards this unit, it is likely going to be something that's viable. We'll just have to wait and see those cards when they're revealed. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I am now very excited for the Dwarf Spider Droids, and I do not regret buying 3, and I can guarantee you that at least one of them is going to have the Ion Gun. And I think we might see a lot of those ion guns alongside B2 Haas in the near future, and it is overall a very exciting time to be a droid player. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel as we are going to have a ton of more Legion news in the near future. Mini Stravaganza starts tomorrow, and we still have more units in this wave, so make sure you don't miss out on any of that. And as always, until next time guys, take care.